Yes.
Where did you all come from?
San Diego!
It was empty here when I went in. Okay.
Tell the stories about the three men that influenced you the most. Howard Lindsay, and then Walter Houston, because those are great stories.
The first one, Howard Lindsay wrote a play called Life with Father. And I was about 15 when I went into the play. And he was coming back into the play. It ran for 9 years on Broadway. Extraordinary for a straight play. And so I had the pleasure of working with him as he came back into the play, because he and his wife Dorothy Stickney were doing a brush up on what they'd done before. So I was fortunate enough to be going into the role of the second oldest son. And so he took me under his wing, actually, at that point, and told me a lot of good things that I've been using ever since. How to play a laugh. A laugh will go up, it'll teeter out up here, and it'll start to come down. He says, that's where you stop the laugh. Don't let them laugh all the way down till they're finished. And he said they'll go home feeling like they hadn't laughed enough. And I've been following that ever since. Also, he told me how to listen, which I think is the sign of a good actor, who knows how to listen. Not thinking about what he's going to say next or anything like that, but reacting to the other actor who may be changing something a little bit, and he can recognize that, and it makes a little difference in his performance. So everything is kind of fresh. Every night, actually, it can run that way, and that's a good way of performing in a long-running show, which Life with Father certainly was. But then, so was 1776. What else do you want me to say, Bonnie?
Well,
What?
how he got you when you went into the Army.
How? Who did?
When Mr. Lindsay, when you went into the Army and came back from the Army.
I was drafted into the Army, which was a great experience for me. It broke me away from a family that was much too close. Two sisters and I who performed together since we were very small, and it took me to Italy. And because I had something called entertainment specialist, which I didn't know the Army even had that kind of thing next to my name, they put me into a radio station in Livorno, Italy, where I became an announcer, and pretty soon they were all leaving, having been there during the war, so suddenly I was in charge of the whole station at the age of 18, running, 7 or 8 other guys and doing this broadcast. It was a wonderful experience. Plus there was a bar out in the back. and I learned to make friends with the quartermaster. And I said to the quartermaster over the phone, I said, listen, if you're dating a girl or anything, and you want to call me up, you want to have a particular piece played, you got it. He said, oh, really? Okay. And I said, by the way, you know those big things of ice cream that you had? Could you send over a couple? So we had a thing going there, pretty good.
But anyway, what did Howard, before you went into the Army, what did he tell you to do? Howard Lindsay.
About college.
College. Where did he tell you to go?
Oh.
Like the government.
Oh, well.
Because that's important.
Yeah, he said, this was Howard Lindsay who wrote Life with Father. He said, Bill, what you got to do is you're going to be drafted right now, and you'll get the GI Bill, one that really put me on the map in New York, which was Edward Albee's The Zoo Story. And we did that. We were the original cast in it, and it was on with another play which was highly touted, and The Zoo Story was not. But when it was a one-act play, so there were 2 one-act plays. So the other play, which was by Beckett, I think, or something.
Kraft's Last Take.
Huh?
Kraft's Last Take.
It was called Kraft's Last Take. That was the thing that the people came to see. But here was the zoo story, and it went over like gangbusters. I mean, I had a guy stop me on the street, who might be interested in this, well-dressed, business suit. He said, Mr. Daniels, excuse me, I was at the play last night. I said, oh, good. He said, well, I ran out. I hope I didn't make a lot of noise. I said, no, I don't think you did. Why did you run out? He said, well, when he started tickling you, I thought, uh-oh, this is not the play. Now, when you think about it, that's a great compliment. This guy lost where the hell he was. He thought he was seeing something that was happening that wasn't supposed to happen, and he ran. And he said, I'm sorry. I said, don't be sorry, that's a compliment. He said, well, the only thing is I have to come back and see the end of the play. So anyway. Okay. Is that it? Oh, yes, sir.
I recently watched an episode of Rockford Files. How was it working with James Garner? You did an episode where you were an art dealer.
When I was what?
An art dealer. You were an art dealer in an episode with James Rockford.
Oh, yeah.
Or
That's quite a
James
few
Garner.
years ago, yeah. Well, Jim is a great guy to work with. He's easygoing. He doesn't have the star attitude, or anything like that. He was very open, interesting to work with, good listener, never interfered with what I was doing. And I think I did a couple of those shows, and it was a good experience. I enjoyed it.
He
did.
He took you to the hospital. He told you to go to the hospital. That's a great story.
Oh yeah. There was a fight that I was supposed to be having with this young actor, and we just kind of did a little rehearsal, but when it got to shooting, he grabbed me and threw me, and I hit a chair with a metal, and I broke ribs.
Wow.
So I did the scene with him, and then I said, I think I have to lay down. And I went into the dressing room, and Jim Garner came in. He said, what's the matter? I said, well, I think I hurt my ribs. He said, I want you to go over to my doctor. He sent me to his doctor. And the doctor took x-rays, and he said that, well, he broke your ribs, this one and this one. Oh, boy.
Great story.
Yeah, well, he was excited. He was a young man, and he just threw me around. Oh, boy.
Then to go on to do Zoo Story and Albee and all these, those are so many different years to drive in. What do you do to prepare yourself as an actor?
Well, it depends upon whether you're on stage, or whether you're on film, or whether you're on a television series. Television series is faster than going into a theater situation where you get 4 weeks of rehearsal or whatever, and take it out of town and bring it back. They don't do that anymore, but they used to in those days. So, I don't know, what was your question?
How do you prepare?
To be so many different, whatever it's
Mediums.
called upon.
Mediums.
Yes.
How
Not
many
only
what?
not only the mediums, but also the kind of role. To be to sing on Broadway, to not sing on Broadway, to be playing camp on television. It's not just the medium, it's the mindset, isn't it?
The mindset.
Would you take the talent? I like those questions. That's a good laugh. Anyway, that's all I can think of saying.
He's very intuitive.
But if there are any other questions, Aren't we going to dinner soon?
We'll take one more question.
Okay, one more question. Nobody has one.
One right here.
Sorry. Of the roles that you've played, which one do you think is most like you?
Of the roles I played, which one was the most like me? Well, of course, there's a little bit of you in each one of the roles, or there should be. You know, it shouldn't be totally made up. You try to find in a part the part of you that you can use in the part, and that always works. That's a good thing to do. But if it's a really strange part, then you've got to just hope you're doing the right thing. I think in 1776, it was very right for me. It was, you know, it was assertive. It had a certain strength to it, and you were on all night long. And it was very declamatory. You know, they were members of Congress. They didn't. It wasn't conversational. You know, they stood up and they talked to get a symphony, to get a sympathetic people around them, and that suited me very well. And I was very happy with that role. And I played it for such a long time. It was probably my favorite role. You know, John Adams.
The one closest to you would be.
Is this a trick question?
Dr. Craig.
Huh?
Dr. Craig.
Oh, well, yeah. I tell you, the producer of St. Elsewhere, Bruce Paltrow, who's no longer with us, sent me, which was very unusual, sent me 5 scripts of St. Elsewhere to read. And I was impressed with that. I read them all, and they were obviously very good scripts. However, Dr. Craig was not that big in it. And so when he called me, he said, "What do you think, Billy?" And I said, "Well, you know, they're wonderful scripts, but, you know, Dr. Craig doesn't really have a lot." He said, "Billy, when the writers hear what you do with it, they will write for you." And that's what it turned out to be. And so it was a very happy experience. And then I had a scene where I pronounced to everybody in the operating room how I got my wife to stop smoking. And I said, I stood out on the lawn and I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, my wife is smoking, she shouldn't do it." And you know what? She stopped. So the next scene, we're at a dinner and I get up to leave to go to the men's room, and she opens her safe, puts a cigarette on and lights it up. So much for that. That was a funny moment. So, anyway,
Great.
there we are.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So, William's new book will be on sale at the front register.
Yes.
Very exotic.
I actually was a commencement speaker at my college, and my speech was inspired by Mr. Feeney. And I talked about each of these, dream, try, duca. So thank you. And I made this other shirt that said, "Mr. Feeney is my life coach."
Oh my God.
It really inspired a lot of us.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much.
Okay.